Ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to do, if we may, okay, ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to do, if we may, is do a quick heads up just on the best 2 or 3 kind of bonfire questions, I suppose, is taking that to that next stage, and then talk about with Moylan, Kel, Pete, or whatever, about how we practically take these conversations out of this room into the community, so it's not just a talking shop and starts to become something that happens. So starting on this side, the kind of questions that kind of have most gravitas for you.
I can't read it,
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, what have you got?
How would you reshape the future? What matters to you? What needs to change? Free holidays, the best ideas.
Free holidays are the best ideas. I quite like the idea of rewarding people who do good stuff for the county. I wonder if you were to walk around Chepstow, walk around Monmouth, Abergavenny, walk around your towns and say, how many of your retailers would give a discount to the people who do most of your county?
They'd all give it a go because what else is there left?
They'd all give it a go because 10% of nothing's nothing. So you could set up some kind of reward scheme where you buy and reward people for contribution. Yeah? Starts to put your money back in the pocket. So the more ideas you come up with, the more you put in, the more miles you put in, the more you get back. I mean, it's worth looking at. It's good. Pete, what have you got here?
This is one of the number, but looking to advertise for certain skills for local groups to take forward.
So can advertise to find out who in communities have got specific skills that you can offer to local groups?
And there's maybe, we talked about silent minority earlier, silent majority, sorry, and how you need to practically identify some of that through that process.
Good, and there's some really good online sites to do that kind of stuff. I like that. Good. A couple of questions from this group.
Yeah, when we kind of got together, we're all sat here today as members. We come from drives what we're trying to do today. If we were to actually get from their ward, from all sorts of backgrounds, and then conversations and comments that might come up from bringing.
So Andy, put Simon on the spot. Week last Friday, coordination, and that's very much what was just talked around there. There's some aspect. We've got those networks out into the community. There's one person.
We asked this question we asked this question around education. The cabinet workshop thinking about the future of their education. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 in their future. The more engagement you get. So I think is that they're not as smart as they thought you were. Or they might realise you're an awful lot smarter because actually it's okay to not know the answers. And I think the scary thing and the good thing is that this stuff doesn't get solved by people any brighter than us. There is no better group of elected representatives in Wales right now, in my opinion, that has the capability to do this kind of thing. You're kidding. Sure, I mean, you are. Other people, I think it's really easy. Cavalry will come over the hill, but we are the cavalry. And if we can go out and do that sort of thing about it and make things happen, do it in the right place, it can work. Get you out of the house to come and join in. Well, I would really, whatever. Let's make it that conversation. Let's get around the house and that conversation.
Will you decorate?
Yeah, how you had this? No longer big for you?
Community needs, we're talking about questionnaires and conversation just in terms of monitor census. and something that something around that, which I think was
Yeah.
but,
So finding out what the real issues are, bottom up. Give the silent people their voice. And that needs to, and my advice on that is that one of the things that's key in this is to make sure that we're keeping people informed around budgets. Because right now that's very real, isn't it? And so when people think we haven't got any money. Just make sure that
We were trying to look at where we could engage with people in going to their groups, trying to engage them in that way.
people like the WI were incredibly.
council, I mean,
And meeting up in a cafe or want to meet, not necessarily in a committee room. Kelly, can I get some thoughts for you and mine? And I would take the best. I would take these ideas aren't structured yet, but they can be, to make them something that can actually be considered as real ideas to do.
Well, we've got a couple over here. I mean, one was, as you said, well, perhaps taking it to community councils was something that we thought about. Do you want to explain the idea, Jack, the blue spot thing? Because that's pretty effective in terms of doing something rather than just thinking about the next step.
Well, there was two things. wasn't
Sorry,
there?
Simon, this is stolen from you.
It was fine.
No, whatever.
There was a point, wasn't it, made in the last time where the simple idea of the blue spot, where we're talking about finding ways of providing service without resource and cost. And the analogy was, well, the example was given of a village that lost its bus service. And because of that, everyone was then struggling. And what they did is they just put a blue spot on the pavement. And for those people who knew what a blue spot meant, was that if you're passing and heading into town, somebody's standing by that blue spot, you both know that person needs to get into town, so you just pick them up. So there's no resource in putting signage up and everything else. Tourists would walk past it and just not even notice
Or
it.
occasionally get kidnapped.
It is a closed loop.
Not doing this.
I only had one foot on it.
But it's just an analogy, it's just finding ways of providing service.
And I think the key thing is that sometimes, if you asked, and this is not to knock anyone who works in transport, but because transport has been taught to think in a particular way, it would involve massive cost and service re-engineering as opposed to a piece of string and a paintbrush. And sometimes I think communities have the ability to come up with stuff that's that simple. So a practical suggestion around saying, so if the offer was there to create a space and each of you bring 2 or 3 people, and then, as your guests, into a conversation, is it something that would be worth doing? And because if so, to plan that for early in the new year, time-wise would work, to kick off the new year as a...
Yeah, I was going to say, they send out thousands of council tax items every year. Having a sort of paper,
Keep putting it in the right time.
council tax and why we get free So we could kick that around, perhaps, Minor, as an idea for early in the new year.
For me,
Please.
it's using infrastructure that's already there. So, for example, from January onwards, we're doing an ward audit. We've done village audits, now we're doing a ward audit for my area. And for me, if you're going to get those groups together anyway, that might be a good time to bring somebody in, to give them information, a bit of training, a bit like this. So you're kind of doing it in one go.
And I think one of the things I've seen from what's been happening so far in the entrepreneurship school is that there's nothing I've seen like it in any local authority. I'm not having words in every authority in Wales, but there's nothing I've seen like it. And I think that the talent that you're growing in-house, the people you've got going through that programme are more than capable of running those kind of sessions. And the more they do it, the more they'll become conversant in the issues and be able to get better at their jobs as a consequence. So I think kind of growing people within the county is key.
I think what I'm struck with is that certainly this group here, I don't know, but
They're just
there was
good.
no problem in thinking about 200 people that they knew in their community. So that measure, easy. That they didn't take any time whatsoever in terms of that measure. They would then, and that's the bit whereby we've got to create a different type of conversation. The whole dynamic of the relationship's got to, there's a bit about, sometimes about dependency, there's a bit about being critical. We're talking about, can we be more creative together because the problems are shared. And that's something where people like people from the entrepreneurship school, etc., can start to help more and more and more of you as councillors in your wards actually do that, because then it's not a lone voice, and it helps if you have some other people to help you have that
And to
conversation.
realise, and I think what stops people often is that they're feeling that they're alone.
And then a councillor, and then somehow or other there's an expectation that you'll have the answers.
Because you sort out street lights.
And actually, you've kind of got into the critiquing of the problem area without getting into the analysis. You know, I'm not trying not to teach you, because
Okay.
you know all this, but it's changing it.
Absolutely.
One thing that is important, if you're going to invite people in, we're all going to go in and find two people who invite them. We've all got to go in with the same vision of what we're trying to get them in.
I've got more people.
Otherwise, people are going to come in and say, oh, I didn't understand it was going to be like that. So before we go in,
a really clear brief.
there's got to be a clear brief that says, this is what we're all about. And then there can be no doubt, and that makes it more effective from the front end.
I think that's a great point. So this could be about you hosting a bigger conversation with the county about what comes next.
We'll all go out and say to our friends, two friends, there's a party at Dave Debbie's house on New Year's Eve, pass it on.
Kids go out flash mob. Yeah, please.
Particularly on Martin's point, I think what we need to be careful of as well is,
So,
we as an authority as well, we go down this line and we make these steps. And same in business, if you're trying to do a deal and trying to bring people in, don't ever rub the noses in it as well, because then you lose it forever. So what we need to have is a clean slate. I think we need to actually start by making sure that the people we have there, we respect them. Because we've got three things in Monmouthshire: pride, passion and belief. And I think if we can put all three together, actually we can drive forward. But if we lose that link, and it seems so important.
yeah, I totally agree. I think that first stage needs to be people you can completely trust and be said, I don't know the answers. Phil.
I agree with Simon, but I would say, if you're going to do it, be careful of the language that we use.
Yeah.
And as soon as you said one word, I suddenly went, and my back was up. Personally, I banned the word council. And you said authority, the local authority. Nothing gets my back up more when I hear the local authority. Authority for what? We're here by consent. So let's get rid of the word authority. Quite frankly, get rid of the word council, because that's us and them, and just say it's the county. We're all in together.
Yeah, and I think the idea that, you know, as to invite people in who you trust, who you can have a conversation with, to say, there's this bloke here from finance has given us some tough challenges, we don't know the answers. The vulnerable people, we've got some big challenges, enterprise, education, some challenges. Help us solve them with the same kind of framing. I think, you know, it could be very real, it could happen.
The state of Monmouthshire.
I think we could utilise community councils. I mean, they're a big part of the community council, should be. And, you know, you get to know everybody, you have their trust, and I think that's where you could do a lot of your groundwork.
There's the scope as well with this. Are you familiar with the idea of time banking? Broadly? So that it happens in different opportunities, but if there's anyone not working who's got time and wants to create value, the opportunity of setting up some of the community council facilitation process using time banking has got a huge scope. Pete?
No, I was just saying, you know, it's a state of Monmouthshire debate, isn't it?
Yeah.
With themes. I mean, I'm just thinking of David's point of the message of what it needs to be. You know, something's got to really hook people, hasn't it? I mean, we'll be inviting them along, but they've got to want to come. So it's that message, that book.
Which, then this comes back to the question from over here about what will get people out the door a bit.
I was just thinking, instead of calling ourselves Monmouthshire County Council, we should be called Monmouthshire County Cooperative. Gives a sense of...
There's objection over here.
That's a conversation for another time, I think.
You're going to cooperate?
If you're going to be like that. Right. Okay, so just to wrap that, please.
What if I ask two people from my ward, whom I choose, and the next week all the others find out I chose them and they weren't asked? That could bring a problem.
I think the framing, which is back to the important point from earlier on, the framing for this is to say there are unprecedented, we can work together to write something around this, but the framing is that and I don't want to I don't want to be melodramatic about this, but humanity has never stood it was in front of such big challenges around the way we run our entire economic system, the way we run our society, and what's working and what's not. And we definitely know that small groups of people by themselves can't solve it. So our goal will be to get 75 or 80,000 people in Monmouthshire more actively involved in the democratic process of helping to get involved in running the community so that they do what they want to do. Our start point is going to be to try and understand some of the questions, and we're going to start to run some events. And if you want to get involved, we would never say no. And we need to then work out how the hell we do that when 600 people say, I want to come into the community. We'll deal with that down the line. So the action that we'll take away is to write up a proposal for some kind of New Year kick-off, a new conversation, start the New Year. In the first couple of weeks in January, get something to you in the next couple of weeks as a kind of a draft, some draft dates on that, and then with a timetable on that.
Many years, this council has been trying to bring forward a charter to work with the community councils. This has been going on for probably 7 years. That's a tremendous bar. I mean, Penny referred to you meeting with the community councils. You've got a body there, you've got a spread over the whole authority. But the antagonism, the lack of action or progress on that charter has generated. This is a bar to this initiative. This will harm this initiative now. That should be your priority for next year, for your council. Get that charter.
We'll work with One Voice. We can work with One Voice Wales.
They are working with One Voice Wales.
To try and accelerate that and bring that forward. But I'm very conscious of time.
Some of the bits that you said, I don't think you want to say one or two words about the budget. So, I'll be quick. Yes, Val, very, very valid about the charter, which, if anybody of you have seen it, is a large book. Yeah. But we have got a meeting in terms of the charter early December, I can't remember when, and actually that's another way about how you have a different conversation. Because what I would say is that we have the same conversation we always had with our communities, and some are engaged and really want to be active, and there are some that want to stay where they are. Thank you very much. So we have to change that conversation, and I think to begin to do that would be our December meeting. I'm going to be there, Chief Executive is going to be there, etc., etc. You know, don't know how it's going to go. So that's one thing. I just want to remind you of some of the things that we've talked about. We've talked about the overall challenge. Yeah, I think you've got that. Yeah. We've talked about creativity, ideas, entrepreneurship, a few other people going through, and how we can use that, both the approach and some of the staff members that are going through the next cohort, to actually, engage our citizens, assist you with this task. We've talked about service redesign as an essential. We've talked a bit about something called whole systems, which is bringing rigour to what we actually do and asks essentially the question to our customers and citizens, what matters to you? So that does that anyway in that design, and my goodness, when you ask that question, it is almost rather humbling to find out what the answer is from them. And we talk a lot now about what you do, what we all do, about taking it into our communities where we have got ideas, social capital, interest involved. Not everywhere. I'm a big one for making sure that we always hear the voice of people that don't have a voice. You know that from me, because sometimes you hear the voices that are equipped to me. But nonetheless, the principle of actually saying we're going to need all of our brain power and all of our social capital to try and actually think through this. And it's our job, all of us together, to help each other to do that. And we do have to write this up and have some ideas. You have been great, and it is useful just to have a conversation like this, which for me is a different type of conversation. It's a sort of conversation that we need to have. Give it in an afternoon. I mean, I know that tomorrow will be different. I know that there's kind of pretty various bits that play out in different arenas. But looking at the size of the problem, the real work for all of us is to actually get this bit started.
Absolutely everything you said, spot on. there's another piece of work for us to do. It's for the other 20 people who weren't here today. And that's the piece of work of how we, is there another action that needs one of us to speak to one other or something like that?
I would just say it's a point of timing for a lot of people who do work.
I just say, you may have been wondering what the video camera was about today, and while we haven't been filming the individual discussions, we did film some of the presentation information so we can make that available to other members who weren't able to be here by the end of this week. But I think what we can do is write up, provide the slides, but I do think it is about personal responsibilities and then go on and spread this message and give some interpretation to the video that we'll make available as soon as.
And what we can do in terms of, if we plan an event for kind of mid to late January, we can coordinate something, commit to council beforehand just to give you kind of practical heads up on what we're asking around that, so to make sure that everyone's fully up to speed within your, and do that within your existing calendar.
But hold the energy, so that's the infectious bit. Yes?
I don't know whether it's the right thing to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think it would be a good idea if there's a group of people here with regard to this project that we strive to be colourblind with as much as we can?
Would you like to be colourblind? I think
that isn't a racial thing.
Yeah. No, but I think walking in, if you walked into the, someone walked you into this conversation this afternoon, you wouldn't know you weren't part of the same team.
That's the point.
Can I just raise one more thing, please? If it would be okay with everyone, it'd be really good just to have 2 minutes with one representative from each political group. Because I think if we put the video out on YouTube or make it available internally, to have some reflections from one of you representing each of the groups would be really helpful in terms of sending this collective message out about us all being in this together. So if you could indicate if you'd be willing just to do that for 30 seconds, just to say something for us to capture on video before you leave tonight, that would be really helpful.
Great.
Okay, yeah.
Just to say,
I know that people are actually leaving. So, no, we wanted a few minutes. Sorry, can I just say...